Kaboyo Radio. This is radio number 1 in Mount Elgon. And today we are going to discuss about the climate mitigation. And remember, this is sponsored by ESA. ESA is Innovative Spark Africa. Okay, let's go. Because we want to show people now what is the effect of this climate mitigation and emphasis on how to reduce this climate mitigation. So first, let's go to definition. Or maybe I can define this so that people can understand what is climate mitigation. And climate mitigation refers to action aimed to reducing or preventing the emission of greenhouse gases. That is GHCs. That's the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to slow down or reverse climate change. And the goal is to minimize the global warming and its associated impacts. So this is how we can minimize that the greenhouse effect in the atmosphere. And these are the things that you can minimize that greenhouse effect. One is use of renewable energy. So we want to that is transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable sources like solar, wind, and hydro power. So that is the first thing that we can reduce the emission of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That is the renewable of energy. So people within the locality should go to renewable sources of energy. That is solar energy. That is wind energy and hydropower. Then another thing is energy efficiency. You know, when you talk about energy efficiency, it means that we must implement energy-saving technologies and practices in industries, buildings, and transportation to reduce energy consumption. So, for example, when we use this public transport, the electric vehicles, we must use something that do not consume a lot of energy so that we can save that energy. Then another thing is carbon capture and storage. Carbon capture and storage. So when you talk about the carbon capture and storage, technologies that capture carbon dioxide emission at the sources and store them underground or use them in other ways. So we come up with this carbon capture storage. We capture that carbon dioxide and we store it underground, or we use it in another purposes. Yeah. Then another thing is sustainable agriculture. We must talk about the sustainable agriculture. So practices that reduce emission from farming, such as reducing the use of synthetic fertilizers, improving livestock management, and adopting agroforestry. As you know, the essence of planting trees is to make sure that carbon dioxide that is being emitted in the atmosphere is reutilized by the plants in the process called photosynthesis. You know, so when we do the agroforestry, it means that the carbon dioxide that will be emitted to the atmosphere, it will be in turn used by the trees to manufacture their own food by the process called photosynthesis. Then what we can emphasize here is let's do agroforestry. Let's do agroforestry and the use of synthetic fertilizers. Yeah. Then we have transport decarbonization. When we talk about the transport decarbonization, it means that we are shifting to electric vehicles, that is EVs, and improving public transport infrastructure to reduce the carbon footprint of the transport sector. As you know, in this digital era, we are using the electric vehicles. The mission of using that electric vehicle is to minimize using of the fossil fuel, because when you use the fossil fuels, there is high emission of those greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Then we have this also thing called waste management. And when you talk about the waste management, is reducing emission through better waste processing, recycling, and composting, and by capturing methane from landfills. When you talk about the waste management, it means that we can use those the gases emitted to the atmosphere. We really recycle them to perform a very meaningful purposes. For example, the carbon dioxide can be reduced from being so harmful to be less harmful and used in several sectors. For example, when you use in soft drinks, soft drinks, we use the carbon dioxide, so it is being utilized. Okay, let's go to reforestation. And when we talk about reforestation, it involves the planting of trees in areas that have been previously deforested or degraded. It is a critical strategy for sequestering carbon, restoring biodiversity, and preventing soil erosion. I think, my listeners, you know, when we have reforestation, we are really protecting our land from soil erosion. As I was walking around the area, I've seen several places that has been affected by gully erosion. And by gully erosion is that there is less planted trees in that area. So what we are just emphasizing here in Kaboyo Radio is that every listener who is listening to this show of today, to make sure that he plants or she plants several trees so that we can, one, we can protect or we can restore the biodiversity, and also we can do what? We can prevent soil erosion. Because when you talk about soil erosion, is a very serious pandemic that can cause drought and can cause there is no rainfall. So what can we do in this reforestation? One, carbon sequestration. When we talk about carbon sequestration, it means that trees absorb CO2 from the atmosphere, helping to offset greenhouse gas emission. As I have said earlier, when we plant trees, those carbon dioxide that will be emitted to the atmosphere, it will be reabsorbed by the plants, that is trees, so that it can manufacture their own food by the process called photosynthesis. Then we have biodiversity preservation. When we talk about biodiversity preservation, then reforestation restores habitats for wildlife, which is crucial for biodiversity conservation. When you plant trees, we restore the biodiversity. And you know those are the habitats, the home of those animals. For those small animals, that is very essential in aeration, in making the soil more fertile. So when you plant trees, it restores back the biodiversity. Then we have economic benefits. When you talk about economic benefits, reforestation can provide local communities with resources like timber, fruits, and other forest products while creating jobs in the restoration process. Yesterday I was talking with one of the member in CFA, that is a forest service community there. He was saying that when you plant trees, it creates job opportunities first, because we need people to go there and plant trees. Then these trees, when it comes to maturity, it can provide us with timber. It can provide with us with fruits. For example, we are planting these trees with fruits. So in maturity, it will provide with those things. Then we have forest restoration and techniques. When you talk about forest restoration and techniques, it includes planting native species, using sustainable forestry practices, and promoting natural regeneration of forests. You know, so we can just go to different species, which is very native, and it can be used. Let's say, for example, these trees that provide fruits, these different species, and when we plant this, it will restore our forest, and in some years, we'll be able to have a better climate. There will be enough rainfall in our area, and in terms of agriculture, everything will be okay. So this thing will be aired in Kaboyo Radio in every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And the aim is to reach these local communities, the marginalized communities, on helping them on how to talk about this climate mitigation, reforestation, sustainable agriculture, so that everybody should be able to understand these things, and our aim in 5 years, 10 years, we'll have a better place to be. For that few, I wish you all the best as you listen to this Kaboyo Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Big up.